Hello friends, I'm Chris, and I want to help you get pro recordings. Now, one of the things a lot of people struggle with is to get a nice natural sound when doing a live recording of acoustic guitar with vocals. So I'm going to show you how to make it sound big and full. A lot of studios prefer to actually record both parts separately because then they can get that big full sound. But in this video, I'm going to show you how you can get that big full sound while still recording them together at the same time. For this video, I'm actually recording in a small booth. It's only 8 foot by 8 foot with 7.5 foot high ceilings. It's less than half the size of like a normal bedroom. So it's not a big space at all, but I do have some tricks up my sleeve to make a smaller space sound much bigger. So let's start with comparing some different ways of setting up the microphones. I like to record the acoustic guitar in stereo, so we place it out in the sides, and then that provides room in the middle so that the guitar and vocal parts don't clash with each other. But one of the common challenges is that since we're recording guitar and vocals at the same time, well, the vocals are going to bleed into the guitar mic and the guitar is going to bleed into the vocal mic. So we're going to have to deal with that, but I'm going to show you how to alleviate that problem altogether. Because if you don't deal with it, then that little bit of bleed in the other microphone is going to be out of phase with the signal from the main microphone, and that's going to cause like a dullness in the sound. And we don't want dullness in the sound. We want everything to sound perfect. And I'm going to show you the processing and the plugins that I use to get that sound, as well as how I do the final mastering. So the first, and honestly, it's probably the most important part of getting a professional level of sound quality in your recordings, and this also goes towards your mixing and mastering as well, is having good room acoustics. I can't stress this enough. Now, a lesson on room acoustics goes way beyond the scope of this video, but I'm going to do my best to summarize here. Basically, the bigger your space, the better the acoustics will naturally be because the walls are farther away, which means the reflections take longer to come back to the microphone. And because of that time separation, those reflections will have a pleasant reverb. And in a smaller room, the reflections are not only more detrimental, but there's a higher concentration of them because there's less room for the sound to disperse and go away. So the solution is acoustic treatment focusing on absorption. Basically, the smaller the room, the more absorption you need. Like I said, the booth that I recorded this in, it's less than half the size of an average bedroom. So you can make a small space work. I've got a full course teaching room acoustics specifically tailored towards home studios. There's several hours of content demonstrating and testing various absorption materials in different setups and in different rooms. In this course, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know to engineer the best possible acoustic treatment plan for your unique needs. And you're going to be able to make the acoustics in your studio sound like everything you record in there was done in a much bigger and more expensive studio. So if that interests you, you can check out the full course. The link is in the description. So the next thing is microphone placement. For vocals, it's really simple. Just place it in front of the vocalist's mouth, about 6 inches or so. There's nothing special about this placement. It's just the normal placement for a vocal microphone. Now, I made these vocals sound really modern and airy. If you like that sound, I've got a full video right here showing you how you can get the airiest of vocals, and I'll put the link in the description. And for capturing guitar, there's a few different mic setups that people like to use, but I prefer to use the mid-side technique. So let's do a quick comparison of some of these common stereo miking techniques, and I think you'll see why I like the mid-side the best. So the mid-side technique, to me, it sounded the most natural, like you're in the room with the artists. The other techniques sounded a little bit thin or fake. I don't know. They just weren't as full sounding, I guess. So to record with the mid-side technique, you need 2 microphones. One of them is going to be for the mid channel. The other will be for the side channel. So the mid channel, this is the main capture of the instrument. We're going to place the mic about a foot in front of the guitar, aimed straight in where the neck meets the body. Now, the microphone I'm using in this video is an ISK Vibrato, but you can use pretty much any microphone, even any polar pattern. I mean, you want something that's high quality, but you can use like an omnidirectional or figure 8, but I do prefer a condenser microphone for this. But for the side channel, it's a lot more specific what type of microphone you got to use because it has to be a figure 8 polar pattern. This microphone gets placed as close as possible to the mid microphone, but it's rotated 90 degrees so that it's picking up sound from the sides and rejecting the direct sound from the instrument. And in the post-processing, we take the signal from this figure 8 mic and we reverse the polarity of one side of the stereo field. And then when we play the sound from this mic together with the sound from the mid mic, it creates a nice stereo image. Next, we need to deal with the bleed. Let's take a listen to just the guitar mic.
Know a guy, he opened for a big band last night.
So as you can hear, there's a little bit of the vocal bleeding into this mic. That's no good. So what we're going to do to get rid of that is use stem splitting software. For this video, I'm using the stem splitter built into Logic, but there's a lot of stem splitting softwares available out there, and there's even a free one called Gaudio. So the stem splitter provided us with the guitar track, and then it also gave us a separate track for the vocal that was extracted out of it. Now that vocal track is garbage, but don't delete it quite yet. We actually still need to use it for something. And then we're going to take the recording from our vocal mic and do the same thing with it. We're going to run it through the stem splitter and extract that guitar sound out of it. Now in this case, we can just go ahead and delete that extracted guitar sound. We're not going to need it for anything. So here's how the vocal sounds before and after.
I didn't know that life's just everybody asking what it's all about. Didn't realize no one's ever had the answer figured out.
Now, even though the vocal was removed from the guitar track, it wasn't perfectly removed. There's going to be some small remnants of it left over in there. Now, they're going to be so small we can't even hear them, but they still are there just a little bit. And those small remnants actually are going to have a little bit of an effect on the tone of the vocal. And we want our vocals to sound as perfect as possible. So we're going to take this additional step to help us get there. So you remember that vocal track that was extracted out of the guitar part and we kept it? So now we're going to go ahead and use that. All right, if you listen to the guitar mic that has the vocal extracted, so there's no vocals left in this, you can hear a lot of distortion in that guitar signal, and that's because of the remnants of the vocal. Let's just give it a listen. So that might sound like a really bad distortion, but it's actually not, because that noise coincides with the lead vocal part. So once the vocal is playing, that won't get noticed. But we do got to make sure that those remnants of the vocal are in phase with the main vocal. So what we're going to do is... Okay, I've got my original recording here. So here's my vocals.
Career high.
And here's my guitar mic.
I didn't know that.
Okay, so I'm going to extract the vocals out of this, the stem splitter. Now, when we extract the vocals, we don't want to delete this vocal track yet. We will be deleting it because it's not part of the final sound, but we don't want to delete it yet because we're going to use this vocal track to obtain phase relationship between the main vocal mic and the guitar mics. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put a small amount of delay on the vocal mic so that the sound from the vocal mic lines up in time with the guitar mics.
Life's just everybody.
Okay, so I'm going to play that, and I'm also going to play the lead vocal, and I'm going to put a little bit of delay on the lead vocal. Let's go with 1 millisecond.
Buddy asking what it.
Now I'm going to flip the phase of this back and forth to find out which way is in phase and which way is out of phase.
Asking what it's all about. Didn't realize no one's ever had the answer.
And let's try to tweak this delay to get the right amount of delay.
Figured out. He opened for a big band last night. I have a friend.
Okay, so having the phase inverted sounds a lot more natural. So inverting the phase of the guitar will actually have those remnants of the vocal be in phase with the vocal microphone. And that's also having 0.8 milliseconds delay on that vocal microphone. We can delete that vocal track that was extracted from the guitar mic. Okay, so what I'm going to do on this vocal track is I'm going to put 0.8 of a millisecond of delay on it. 0.8. And on my guitar bus, I'm just going to flip the polarity. Boom. Now the vocal will be in phase with the remnants that are on that guitar track.
I know a guy, he opened for a big band last night. I have a friend, she's
And the last step is some standard processing of EQ, compression, and de-essing on both the vocals and the guitar tracks. Yes, I do de-essing on the guitar track because I find the sound of the pick striking the strings to be a little bit louder than what I think is pleasant. So a de-esser on the guitar track just reduces the sound of that pick a little bit. Okay, so let's just do a quick overview of all the processing that I have on these tracks. We'll start with the vocal here. The first plugin that I have is an EQ, but it's not just any EQ, it's a linear phase EQ. Now, that's because I went through the trouble of phase aligning the vocal with the remnants of vocal that's left in the guitar tracks. And if you don't use a linear phase EQ, you just use a regular EQ, as soon as you make an adjustment, it's going to be out of phase. So I use a linear phase EQ to retain phase correlation. Next plugin I have is the Universal Audio Precision De-esser. Standard processing, a little bit of de-essing on that vocal is nice to have.
I know a guy, he opened for a big band last night.
Okay, nothing to write to your girlfriend about on that de-esser. Okay, again, just a compressor, nothing special about this either.
I know a guy, he opened.
And then that wee little bit of delay that I already showed you, 0.8 of a millisecond. And on my sends, I've got on bus 27. So this is what I consider just give a little bit of airiness. So I've got a saturator plugin. I like boosting the high frequencies to get that airiness, but I have a rule with EQ boosting, and that's if it's not there, you can't boost it, right? I mean, that sounds obvious, but quite often, like, a recorded signal doesn't have very much of a certain frequency spectrum, and that's why people are trying to boost it. But if it's not there, you can't boost it. So my little trick for that is if it's not there, you got to generate it, and then you can boost it. So I use a harmonics generator plugin. I've got the UAD BX Saturator V8, UAD BX Saturator V2, and that's going to be creating a lot of these high frequencies. And then I've got an EQ, just a low cut filter, so that everything is cut out except for these really high frequencies. So let's take a listen to what that's doing.
I know a guy, he opened for a big band last night.
Whoops, that's the wrong one. That's my reverb send. That's not what it was supposed to sound like. Okay, I'm going to dial up the right one this time.
I know a guy, he opened for a big band last night. I have a friend, she's at an all-time career high.
Okay, so I think you could hear what that was doing if I max it out, but maxing it out kind of creates a little bit of a weirdness. I don't want it maxed out. I just want a subtle amount of this character in there. So I'm going to keep this dialed down fairly low. And then, yeah, the other send, you already heard it. It's that reverb. I'm using the SSL Flex Verb. I really like this reverb. And that's everything on our vocal chain. Okay, so moving on to our guitars, I've got both of these guitar mics routed to a bus, and then there's processing on the bus, but I'll start with the processing on each individual guitar mic. So on the mid microphone, I've literally got nothing. There's not a single plug in there. Now on the side microphone, there's a de-esser there. That just takes out some of the harshness of the pick noise when it hits the strings on the strums. Okay, so you can see that gain reduction whenever that pick is hit. And then I've got a gain plugin. Now, the purpose of this gain plugin isn't actually for any gain. Like, it's not even doing anything. There's no gain. It's not phase inverted, nothing happening. But this plugin is here for a reason. It's because this track is in mono, and I need it to be in stereo to do the processing required for the mid-side decoding. So this isn't just a gain plugin, but it's actually a gain mono to stereo. So every subsequent plugin after this is going to be a stereo plugin. So now I've got another gain plugin, but this is a stereo gain plugin, and it's got slightly different controls. Now I have phase inversion of the individual left and right channels, and I've inverted only the left channel. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can invert only the right channel. Doesn't matter which one you do, but you got to invert the phase of one of the sides of the stereo field. See, if I don't have that phase inverted, here's how it sounds. So that's what creates the stereo effect, is inverting one side of the stereo field on that ribbon microphone. And then the last plugin I have on the ribbon mic is the UAD C-Vox C-Suite. This is a noise reduction plugin. Because this ribbon microphone, it has such a weak output, you get a lot of noise from the gain of the preamps because the gain has to be turned up so much. Let's just listen without that, particularly at the end here where that guitar kind of rings out. So if I turn that on, so you can hear there's still noise, but it's reduced quite a bit from this plugin. Now, I could reduce it more, but if I have this attenuation turned up too high, then it starts to make that guitar sound weird. And I really want to retain a natural sounding guitar. Yeah, so I don't like how that guitar sounds with the attenuation cranked. So I find the happy medium is somewhere in this area where it still reduces the noise quite a bit, but also still retains a natural sound of that guitar. And then onto the bus processing. So first I've got a gain plugin here, and this is to invert the phase so that the remnants of the vocal that's in the guitar is in phase with the actual vocal. Next is a compressor, again, standard processing. Now this next plugin might be a little bit interesting. It's a subharmonics generator, the UAD BX subsynth. Kind of like what I said with the high frequencies. If they're not there, you can't boost them. Well, same with low frequencies. You know what? I just feel like having more low frequencies fills out the sound quite a bit. And this is a lot different than what I would be able to do if I just took like an EQ and boosted the lows, because like I said, if they're not there, you can't boost them. So this generates low frequencies. Now, a lot of those low frequencies are actually being cut out by this low cut filter. So I'm going to remove that low cut filter and just kind of show you what this plugin is doing. Okay, so that's obviously too much. But if I dial it in just a little bit, now that still kind of sounds like too much because there's a lot of low frequency rumbling going on there and I don't like it. But that's why I've got that low cut filter on the EQ, so I'll instantiate that. There you go. So I got it fairly subtle. It's not doing a lot, but I don't want it doing a lot because this can start to make things really muddy really quickly. Okay, and then my channel EQ, I've got this little dip here in the lower mids, and that's because of the sub-synth. I found it was kind of creating a lot of like conflicts in this area. So that's my way of conflict resolution, is just reduce that a little bit. De-esser on the guitar bus, again, this is just to reduce that pick noise from the strumming because I found it to be quite harsh. And then I've got this plugin called Wider, and this is a free plugin by Polyverse Music, and it just does that. It'll take a mono signal and make it stereo, or take a stereo signal that's already wide and make it even wider, which is why it's called Wider. And because this guitar part has vocals on it, making the guitar wider creates more space in the middle where the vocal will sit. So I do like to have it just a wee little bit. I find too much and it starts to sound a little weird, but a little bit is nice. Okay, Okay, so I'm going to reduce that to something around there. And that helps the vocal sit in the middle a little bit better. Then I've got a little bit of reverb on that guitar part. Oh, and another thing I usually do, sorry to jump around here on the vocal, but I usually like to put a little bit of a delay on the vocal as well. Plugins, delay, stereo delay, boom. Quarter note, eighth note, so that's a little bit of a ping pong delay.
I didn't know that life's just everybody asking what it's all.
All right, so I don't want too much because that can just kind of sound comical, but a little bit does help fill it out a little.
I didn't know that life's just everybody asking what it's all about.
And then on the mastering chain, so my first plugin is an EQ. Now this looks like a massive low-cut filter, but it's really not, because if you look at the processing down here, I've got it set to side only. So it's a massive low-cut filter of just the side channels so that any stereo imaging is going to be removed. Only a mono signal is going to come through out on the sides, because I don't want information on the sides in the lower frequencies. Next, I've got a compressor. Okay. It's just subtly doing a little bit there. A multi-band compressor. I don't always use this, but since I'm using that the subharmonics generator on the guitars, like those low frequencies can get out of hand quite a bit quite quickly. So this is mostly just to tame the lower frequencies if they get a little too loud and to smoothen out the frequency response.
I didn't know that.
And the last plugin should always be a limiter. And I got this set so that at the loudest parts of the song, it just touches the gain reduction a wee little bit. I don't actually want the limiter to be kicking in very much at all because I don't want it to change the sound. I already did my compression in the mix, increased the gain to get the song as loud as possible without being overcompressed.
I didn't know that life's just everybody asking what it's all about.
All right, so it just came in a little bit. We were getting about maybe a decibel of gain reduction in the loudest parts of the song. Now, if you've put your de-esser on the vocals and you've done as much as you can with it and you're still struggling with sibilance, I've got a whole video dedicated to showing you a really powerful method of dealing with sibilance that works much better than your typical de-esser plugin. So if that interests you, you can check out that video and I'll put the link in the description. Now, the vocal EQ, this is something a lot of people screw up by overcomplicating it. All you got to do is put a low-cut filter somewhere around 100 to 150 hertz, somewhere in that area, and boost the treble. Sometimes I'll boost the lows a little bit around 200 hertz just to add a little bit of warmth. But what I see people doing, and it's ruining the tone of their vocals, is they go fishing, sweeping around, trying to find resonances, and then they cut that frequency out. And most of the time that I see people doing that, they're actually causing more harm than benefit. Because the issues that cause those resonances, they're not fixable with an EQ. It'll be issues like a bad sounding microphone that's like really boxy, and it isn't one specific frequency causing that, or bad room acoustics where there could be a node or a null or something like that. And again, you're not going to fix bad room acoustics with an EQ, so just don't even try. Now, if there is a resonance and you can clearly hear it and it's bugging you, then yeah, go ahead and notch it out. But don't go trying to find issues that you can't even hear. Going back to room acoustics, if you have good room acoustics, then it's very unlikely that you're going to have any resonances or any of those problems at all. Now, the audio interface you choose to use, that's going to play a big role in everything you record, mix, and master. I've tested out a lot of the more popular brands of audio interfaces, and you can see that comparison video right here. And if you have further questions and you want to have me as your own coach, you can feel free to join my Facebook group. It's called Get.Pro.Recordings, and I'm there to answer people's questions, and I post tips and tricks on a regular basis, so you can feel free to join that Facebook group if you like. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button if you want to see my upcoming videos.